So was Benno and Wesley Hall, Davo, Simo and Morrill too. Cricket greats, man, that is very true. Who played their best in the great tie test? Ramadine and Valentine, Norm O'Neill and Lindsay Klein, all out there in the hot sunshine. They played their best in the great tie test. They played their best in the great tie test.
The first cricket test was played in Melbourne in March 1877 between England and Australia. And since that time, 1,000-odd test matches have been played, and only one has ended in a tie. And that was the fabulous tie, the clash between Australia and the West Indies, which started in Brisbane on the 9th of December, 1960. And Wisden lists that match as the 500th to be played. The West Indians, under Frank Worrell, seemed a top-heavy with batsmen, and there were only three specialist bowlers, the paceman Hall and the spinners Valentine and Ramadan. This meant that Sabres and Worrell would do a fair share of bowling. In contrast, Richie Benaud's Australians appear to have a well-balanced attack with two fast bowlers, a medium pacer and two spinners. The interesting selection was the South Australian opener Favell to bat down the list.
The team captains Richie Benaud of Australia and Frank Worrell of the West Indies tossed before the start of the first test match at the Wollongabba ground, Brisbane. And judging by the smile on Frank Worrell's face, he's delighted to win the toss and take first use of the perfect batting pitch.
This is the only coverage in existence from those early days of Australian television. It was photographed by a single 16mm camera, and the silent film was flown to Sydney for editing and dubbing. I worked as the commentary writer and later as the reader as well. You see it now exactly as it was shown in 1960.
The opening pair for the West Indies are Cammy Smith and Conrad Hunt. Smith, on the left, zoomed into public favour with two hard-hitting knocks in the earlier matches against the States. Conrad Hunt, a polished batsman and a proven test opener, will face the first ball from Alan Davidson. Davidson is able to move the ball away from the batsman, and his deliberate plan to entice the batsman to play strokes gets a typical West Indian reaction off the third ball of the match. A boundary to open the scoring, much to the delight of the crowd. Now Davidson, varying his attack, tries one on the leg stump. The batsman run two, but the ball beats the fieldsman to the boundary. This is a sparkling start, and it's unusual for Davidson to concede as many runs in the first over. The first moment of uncertainty comes with the last ball of Davidson's over. A fast outswinger has Hunt swishing at the ball, and the batsman has shown fallibility in his desire to score runs quickly. Wicket-keeper Wally Grout makes a splendid save off the last ball of the fourth over. West Indies none for 23 in 20 minutes of play. However, the change comes in the fifth over of the match. Davidson the bowler, Smith the batsman. No score, but a wicket falls off this ball by Alan Davidson. Cammy Smith caught Grout, bowled Davidson for 7, and the first West Indian wicket has fallen with 23 runs on the board. Smith leaves the scene, and there's a great round of applause for Rowan Canhigh as he makes his way to the wicket. This batsman has already established a great reputation with his desire to score runs quickly. Davidson bowling to Canhigh. Canhigh, like Hunt, starts with a boundary. It's dashing cricket, and almost every ball provides more excitement. More runs to Canhigh. There's something of the line of Keith Miller and Dennis Compton in Canhigh's makeup. A lost cap, 2 runs and almost a fall, and all this a normal series of events while he's at the wickets. Now he faces the last ball of Davidson's over, and again there's an incident. Kanhai is quick to recover from his jarred hand, and in the next over by Mekif, the crowd is treated to some entertaining batting by both Hunt and Kanhai. The score races to 42, and then the game takes a sudden turn when Alan Davidson takes the wicket of Hunt for 24. The West Indies have now lost 2 wickets rather cheaply, and a lot will depend on the performance of Kanhai and the remaining batsmen, because Hunt was a valuable man to lose. Play continues with Davidson bowling to Sobers, and once more a boundary is the first scoring shot. The Australian captain is not overawed by the quick scoring, and he maintains a packed slip field. Benno realises that Davidson can move the ball away from the batsman, and already this has brought 2 wickets. It's great cricket to watch, and the crowd is increasing rapidly as Davidson bowls to Sobers. And Sobers gives visual proof of his reputation as one of the great batsmen in the world today. Then another breakthrough for Australia as Davidson bowls to Kanhai. Kanhai caught Grout, bowled Davidson for 15. Davidson has captured all 3 wickets, and all 3 have gone to catches. 2 to Grout and 1 to Benno. Play resumes with Benno bowling his first over, and Sobers welcomes him with typical aggression. This sizzling straight drive takes the score past 100, and even Benno has to applaud the brilliance of Garfield Sobers. This is the start of an innings which was later rated by experts as one of the best ever seen in a test match in Australia. Here Sobers squashes the theory that West Indians can't play spin bowling. It's a long time since Benno has been punished like this, and Worrell too is able to pick up runs when he can get the strike. Worrell scores a single off the first ball of Mackay's over, and Sobers steals the limelight again. Sobers and Worrell have started their partnership, which yielded almost 200 runs. Worrell, playing the role of the lesser light in the combination, is making a valuable contribution towards a big score for the West Indies. They've recovered from the loss of 3 early wickets and are still maintaining the crowd-pleasing rate of more than 1 run a minute and nearly 6 runs an over. Sobers passed 50 in 57 minutes, and his innings at this stage included 8 fours. This is a timely return to form after his recent string of failures against New South Wales and Queensland. With lunch approaching, Benno bowls, and Worrell follows the pattern of his left-handed partner. At lunch, the West Indies have lost 3 wickets for 130, with Sobers not out 68 and Worrell not out 16.
And that was the most entertaining morning session in modern cricket history. And the Australian who did so well was Alan Davidson, the fast bowler, who was starting there one of the greatest all-round performances in Test history. And now, almost a quarter of a century later, you look back on that morning's play, Alan. You started off and, first over, you hit for 8 runs, you finished up with 3 wickets. You must have wondered what it was all about.
Well, actually, I think the whole Test series against the West Indies was an absorbing one, Norman. But I think that particular morning, I can remember on the evening before we had our team dinner, and Sir Donald Bradman said, I just think that you've got a wonderful opportunity to do something for cricket in this series. Never realising that in that next morning, I can recall picking up the 3 wickets, but I think even more amazing was the fact that we had drinks after the first hour. And I said to Richie, I said, gee, there's 65. And he said, yes, but they're also 3 down. And, you know, to sort of still continue to play with that exhilaration that they had, and despite losing wickets, to me, it was sort of signified the whole series. And we played it in much the same spirit. I think if you go right through the series, I suppose one could say that we were nearly scoring 6 runs and over both sides. There were attacking fields. There were 2 captains prepared to play a marvellous game. I think Frank Worrell, and I think if you just have a look at the clips that we've just watched, I doubt if there's ever been a greater stylist than Frank Worrell. He was a great captain. Richie Benaud was a great captain. We had great teams, and I think that first morning really epitomised what cricket was all about.
Alan, can you compare that to your first test as an opening bowler, which was 2 years before England scored 19 before lunch?
Yeah, well, yes. Well, I think England scored something like about 130 in the whole day. They had it up before lunch, the West Indians. And, you know, and what we were concerned about was it going to be the first time 500 had been scored in a day, because if you recall, also Sobers got his 50 in just under the hour. And to me, that is the finest innings I've ever seen played in Test cricket, because he just didn't beat us. He, you know, like, it's all very well to play shots and beat the field, but Gary in that innings, I've never seen a player bisect the field so beautifully as Gary did, and yet hit it with you know, absolutely, well, he was a gifted player. That's just the easiest way to describe him. He was a genius, and he just bisected the field. And it didn't matter what we bowled to him, he hit it for 4.
Well, we're going to invite you to come back later in the programme, but now we'll rejoin that wonderful partnership between Sobers and Worrell.
Unconcerned by the state of the game, the batsmen have been scoring at the flamboyant rate of 6 runs and over, and every Australian bowler has been punished severely. Sobers is in tremendous form, and Worrell, playing a captain's knot, is restraining his natural aggression to give his talented partner as much of the bowling as he can. Alan Davidson, both in fact and figures, is the best of the Australians, but he can't check the continuous flow of runs. The news of the thrilling cricket has spread rapidly, and the crowd is increasing by the hour. Benaud now bowling to Worrell, and a flashing square cut is a good example of the free stroking of these colourful West Indian players, and this fixed fate of scoring takes Worrell into the 30s. Worrell's classical style blends in perfect harmony with the power stroking of Garfield Sobers, and this partnership has been rated by experts as equal to any seen in Australia in a test match. Whether it's speed or spin, there's nothing Australia can produce to restrain these brilliant batsmen, and in this over it's left-handed Alan Davidson who comes in for some cavalier treatment. Sobers and Worrell maintain the fast rate of scoring against a consistent and varied attack. They race to a century partnership in 90 minutes with Sobers the dominating figure. For the 10,000 people at the ground, this is real entertainment, because the refreshing approach of the West Indians is far removed from the tense atmosphere when Australia meets England. These fellows have no respect for reputations, and Benaud has given village green treatment in this over to Sobers. 15 runs in quick succession, and Sobers passes through the 80s to move to 90. Benno to Worrell, and the captain gets a single to give his partner the strike. The last ball of the over, Garfield Sobers is among the runs again. A new name appears on the scoreboard, and Lindsay Klein bowls his first over of the match. And although Sobers and Worrell continue to notch up runs, Klein is to prove the least expensive of all the Australian bowlers. But while the flow of boundaries is checked temporarily, the batsmen entertain the public with some smart running between the wickets. Single takes Sobers' score to 95, and the crowd anticipates the century in Benno's next over. Another boundary, Sobers 99. Sobers 100. Century, which was rated by ABC commentator Johnny Moyes as one of the best he has seen in 50 years of cricket. Klein, the bowler, now to feel the might of this 24-year-old batsman who has just scored his 1000 in Test cricket. Worrell is content to play a minor role in the partnership, but his presence on the field has given confidence to the brilliant left-hander. Sobers now has played almost every shot in the cricket textbook. After 3 hours of play, the West Indians are well ahead of the clock with 207 runs on the board for the loss of 3 wickets. The players pause for drinks, and with half the first day over, the West Indians have consolidated their position. Play resumes with Davidson bowling, and Worrell's cover drive pierces the field to take his score past 50. This has been a remarkable recovery by the 2 West Indian batsmen. Australia was right on top in the morning session with 3 quick wickets in the first hour of play. When Worrell joined Sobers, the visitors were on the verge of collapse, but together they have laid the foundations of a very big score. On the other hand, the Australian team has stuck to the task, and the fielding throughout the whole match has been first class. The Australian fieldsmen are relieved when the partnership comes to an end. Sobers spoons up an easy catch off a full toss from Mickett, and he's out for 132. This great innings lasted only 3 hours, and it included 21 fours.
You recognise the voice of the commentator there? That was James Dibble. There was more to the Sobers-Worrell partnership than meets the eye, and to talk about that, the famous Australian cricket broadcaster Alan McGilvray. What did that partnership mean in relation to the whole game and perhaps the whole tour?
It meant a great deal to Frank Worrell. I can never forget his words. I knew him very well, and I discussed this matter of Benno with him because he said, Benno doesn't bother me, but it bothers me to the effect he's having on my team. I must have Gary there, and I must have Kanhai. Well, Kanhai went out, but he wanted the left hand and the right hand combination to defeat Benno. Now, you see, Benno took 6 for 61 against them in the New South Wales match prior to this. And he insisted that he must get on top and Gary must help him. He played quite an insignificant part in that partnership. I think he was 16 at lunch, but he kept guiding Gary. You notice a couple of times in that film he stopped in mid-wicket, picked the bad ball, don't take a risk, I want you to stay on top of this man. He must not defeat us. And the whole atmosphere surrounded that with me when I knew this subject and I knew how well intent he was on that particular partnership and the meaning it had for the rest of the tour. Frank Worrell was a great captain. I heard Alan Davidson pay him compliments, and so was Benno. That was a magnificent bit of cricket, good thoughtful cricket by Frank Worrell in defeating the man that they feared most. Well, he only took 1 wicket for 160 in the match. I think that answer is sufficient to say that Worrell won that battle.
You heard the commentary say there that Johnny Moyes, a very famous old friend of yours, said that he thought it was the best century in 50 years of cricket by Sobers. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. When Gary scored 254 in Melbourne, I went down to see him and I complimented him on the innings. And I said, that was a great pleasure to watch that, Gary. And he said, Don Bradman said it's the best I ever played. And I said, well, Don knows a lot about cricket, but I won't say it's a better innings than you played in Brisbane. And he agreed. He thought himself, although it was a magnificent 254 in Melbourne, that was, in my opinion, and his greatest innings.
So that what we've seen there is really cricket history, the greatest innings ever by one of the greatest players in the world.
It was unbelievably good. So true was Alan Davidson when he said he meant to hit every ball to a certain part of the field, and he hit it. And he placed the ball. I shall always remember the shot that Colin McDonald fielded at mid-off. I've never seen a ball hit so hard, and I've never seen a fieldsman knock back 5 yards, and Colin went back 5 yards.
Well, Alan, we're going to invite you back later to assess the whole match, but we can say now that the West Indies in the first day scored 359, a run a minute for the whole day. On the second morning, there was another character came out and he entertained both as a batsman and he was pretty fiery late as a bowler. His name was Wesley Winfield Hall.
By now, the Australian fieldsmen are looking pretty weary, but they're sticking to their task well in spite of Hall's fierce onslaught. Hall seems the least concerned as he waits for another opportunity to heave that bat at the spearhead of the tired Australian attack, Alan Davidson. But the big fellow doesn't always connect, and he's not too proud to demonstrate how the shot should have been played. It's been crowd-pleasing cricket at its best with a strong Australian attack team. This is great cricket to watch, and the big Saturday crowd revels in the display by the giant West Indian Wesley Hall. The big fellow doesn't have any claim to know the finer points of batsmanship, but his technique, whether it's polished or not, is paying dividends. Another boundary, and Hall takes his score to 20. And just to prove that bowlers can develop style, Wesley Hall amuses and delights the crowd with his immaculate defensive movement. It's time to attack, and Alexander goes for a big hit. Alexander has been batting a long time for his 30-odd runs, but he realizes that the end is not far away. On the other hand, the spectators wouldn't object if the West Indians, with Hall in particular, could stay at the crease forever. Keen students who study their ABC cricket book realize that this is the highest score made by a West Indian team in a test match in Australia. It's not only the highest, but the most entertaining. And an experienced commentator in Johnny Moyes described the first day's play as the best he has seen. This quick single takes the West Indian score to 400. 400 runs in a test match against Australia is a good effort at any time, but the important thing is the way the runs were put together. It's been a long time since Australian bowlers took a thrashing, and Richie Benaud, who's tried just about everything by now, wastes no time in calling on Alan Davidson and the new ball. Davidson is the bowler, and it's obvious that Alexander wants to get Hall away from the striker's end. O'Neill prevents any chance of a quick single, but the batsmen are determined to achieve their objective off the next ball. It's tap and run. It should be a run out, but for once, Davidson misses the stumps. They try anything, these colourful players, and it's heartbreaking for the bowlers if they get away with it. Alexander now, round the leg side it goes, a chase for the fieldsman and more runs for the West Indians. They cross for 3, and Davidson has another crack at Wesley Hall. The young giant cracks back and charges down the pitch. A collision. Down he goes and up to complete 2 runs with the whole ground in a state of pandemonium. Eight runs in 1 over with the new ball. That's only a mild effort compared with the onslaught in Mekip's new over. By Alexander off 2 balls. The crowd wants Hall, and when Mekip sends down a suitable ball, Alexander obliges by turning the ball to leg for a single. Now Hall has the strike, and the crowd settles down for some legalized assault and battery as Ian Mekip moves in to bowl. Another 4 to Hall. 17 runs off the over. A high pitch of excitement as Hall needs 1 more for his 50. Wesley Hall, 50 runs in 65 minutes, and they're loving every minute. A bowling change and Lindsay Klein comes in to tame the dashing West Indian. Hall has established his reputation against fast bowling, and the spinning ball has him guessing. Wesley Hall seems to be in trouble. The next ball from Klein. Hall, deceived by flight, stretches into the unknown. Grouch whips off the bails and Hall is stumped for 50. Hall receives a tremendous ovation for a remarkable half-century which included 8 fours.
The West Indies all out 453, the runs scored in very fast time, the innings finishing before lunch on the second day. Apart from the Sabres century, 4 other players reached 50 or more, a good team effort. Of the bowlers, Davidson was the most impressive, and Klein picked up 3 wickets in the second half of the order. Next, a fiery start to Australia's first innings.
A full toss right at McDonald's head. A fiery opening by the giant bowler. This is real test match heat, with Hall bowling at express speed from the start. Here comes another thunderbolt, and McDonald almost gets an edge. The ball is coming to McDonald at 90 miles an hour, but the plucky Victorian opens the Australian scoring with 2 runs through the packed leg side field. Here comes Hall's answer to McDonald's first scoring stroke. A really vicious ball. Straight at the batsman, and McDonald collapses in pain. McDonald was struck just under the heart by a ball which reared up from a little short of a length. McDonald, a tough fellow, is soon ready to face Hall again. It's a full toss, and McDonald bangs it through the ring of close fieldsmen for another 4 runs. Again, the boundary brings a reaction from Wesley Hall in the shape of a vicious bumper. McDonald has taken all that Hall has to offer, never once flinching from the job at hand. It must be a frightening experience facing this giant bowler, but McDonald is as tough and courageous as they come. This is a graphic close-up as McDonald is struck again. McDonald has taken the worst pounding of his career, and his courage has won him the admiration and respect of every person at the ground. It's significant, too, that every West Indian player, including those from the outfield, have come to offer sympathy. A few seconds delay, and here Hall charges in to bowl another. And there's Colin McDonald, as game as he ever was, banging the ball through the onside field for another bounce. And that's testimony in itself of the courage of this tough Victorian batsman. The West Indies maintain their fast attack, and Sobers continues to McDonald. This is quite unusual because the spin bowlers have not been used, and the Australian innings is more than 90 minutes old. Apart from this minor error, MacDonald and Simpson are able to score freely off the remainder of the over. MacDonald takes a single to move to 44 and then leaves the field as the players pause for drinks. MacDonald is suffering from badly bruised ribs and he requires strapping by the doctor who attended him during the luncheon adjournment. In the meantime, the fieldsmen take a breather with the score at none for 62 after 100 minutes of play. The bowler is starting to slow down a little and Simpson plays his first aggressive stroke for more than 1 hour. They take a second run, notice MacDonald holding his bruised chest. MacDonald has taken his score to 48, and around the ground, the crowd of 16,000 is ready to applaud his half-century. Colin MacDonald, a gallant half-century scored in 100 minutes. Spurred on by a tremendous ovation, MacDonald sets about to take revenge on the bowling, and Frank Worrell is the victim in this over. Then Sobers strikes a great blow for the West Indies. MacDonald plays an uppish leg glance and Hunt takes a brilliant catch at leg slip. MacDonald is out, caught Hunt, bowled Sobers for 57, an innings which was rated by experts as one of the most courageous in modern cricket.
And certainly Wes Hall coming in with that great long run of his for the first ball in a test match in Australia was a frightening experience, and of course as things developed it was a frightening innings that I had to play.
What was the extent of your injuries?
I got badly bruised. I don't know that I suffered any. I didn't break. There were no breaks. I took a great number of balls in my chest, and I certainly had bruises from there right down to my knees. And in fact, the imprint of the ball was on my body. You could see the seam, and it was a good talking point for a few weeks. But when the bruises went, there was no permanent damage. But certainly there was a fair amount of, quite a number of blood vessels broken, and it hurt.
It appeared you couldn't get away from the strike.
Well, Bob Simpson was at the other end. I think that was just the way the cookie crumbled, you know. I think I took more of the strike in that innings, but it wasn't planned that way. It just happened that way, and it was one of those innings where I seemed to be copping Hall all the time.
And no headgear or protective gear?
No, in those days we didn't have any, we had no real protection. We had the thigh pad. I remember that Richie Benno did produce chest pads, which were cumbersome. They were the first attempt to produce a good protection for the body. They were good, but I found it too hot to wear it, so I discarded it after trying it, I think, briefly. It was less traumatic to get hit than to wear the darn thing.
Well, you took a fair sort of pounding from Wesley Hall. Did you dislike him?
How could you dislike such a gentleman? He was a great bowler, a great gentleman on and off the field. Mind you, he's a little bit hard to like on the field, but having known him now for a long time, and even during those days, he was delightful to know. We had a lot of laughs off the field.
Courageous Colin MacDonald was not the only batsman to be hit by a thunderbolt from Wesley Hall. Here's the introduction to Australia's number 4, Norman O'Neill.
Hall works up to top speed, and the success of the Australians rests on the shoulders of O'Neill. A terrible blow, and O'Neill collapses on the pitch in agony.
O'Neill recovered to go and score his best ever in a test match for Australia. Late on the second day, Bob Simpson was out for 92, a slow innings, yes, but a very important one for a team chasing 450. Now we're going to pick up play on the third morning with O'Neill and Favell batting for Australia.
Favell takes the brunt of the attack in the first half hour of play, and the Australians are able to pass through the new ball period without incident. Favell and O'Neill went on to add 86 runs against the tight, fast attack.
Favell goes on the attack by hitting Valentine for 2 straight sixes, and then the only controversial dismissal in the whole match.
Valentine is given another spell, and Favell, in his eagerness to score, loses his wicket off the next ball by Valentine. It's a close run-out decision, and Favell waits for the umpire to confirm his dismissal. It was touch and go, and Favell was a little unlucky to be run out after a fine innings of 45. Australia has now lost 4 wickets for 278 with O'Neill on 62. With Ramadan bowling, O'Neill starts to attack. This burst of scoring is the best Australian batting of the innings. Things are starting to brighten up, and O'Neill's burst of power hitting has split the seam of the ball. This causes a hold-up in play. After examination by the umpires and players, it is decided that a new ball is required before the game can continue. Play goes on, with Valentine bowling to Mackay. Runs are coming quicker now, and Mackay sacrifices the strike as O'Neill is rapidly approaching his century. Valentine bowls, and O'Neill, with a straight drive, brings up his first century in a test match in Australia. A bowling change, and Hall bounds in with the third new ball. This time it holds no fears, and there's some quick scoring off this spell. O'Neill races down the pitch for a well-run single, and Australia has taken the lead with 5 wickets still in hand. This is the signal for aggression, and Davidson opens his shoulders to score the first boundary in half an hour. Hall, nettled by the boundary hit, comes storming in to bowl the next ball. It's extra fast, and Davidson snicks a catch to Alexander behind the stumps. Davidson batted solidly to score 44 runs in just 1.5 hours. They take a quick second run, and Australia is 9 for 500. Another over with Ian Meckiff facing Hall. The batsmen are able to score another 5 runs before the end of the innings. O'Neill attempts a lofted drive. The ball soars high in the air, and Valentine, waiting at mid-off, takes the catch. During the day, the Australians scored 309 runs for the loss of 7 wickets. The outstanding batsman was Norman O'Neill, and his total of 181 was his best in a test match. His innings, which lasted 400 minutes, included 22 fours.
So the Australians were all out 5-05 to create a first innings lead of 52. O'Neill the top scorer, and the 2 openers scoring 2/3 of the runs between them. In this long innings, the West Indian fast bowler Hall put up a marathon performance for 4 wickets, and the spinners Valentine and Ramadan only picked up 2 wickets between them. And of course the highlight for Australia was the batting of Norman O'Neill. Here with me again, Alan Davidson. Normie O'Neill.
Well, I don't think present-day people would, or young players that probably watched great players of the past few years, would realise that Norman O'Neill could be ranked with any of the great players of the past. He was a magnificent player. I doubt if there was ever a stronger player off the back foot. And certainly when he was in full cry, you know, he was a joy to watch. And he could devastate any attack in the world.
Do you think he hit the ball as hard as Sabres, or harder, or what?
Well, I think he hit, well, they were both great players. I think Gary probably was, you know, was slighter build. Normie was very powerful, extremely powerful forearms, shoulders, and he had this incredible power to hit fast bowlers off the back foot, straight back down the ground. And I doubt if there was ever a stronger player, as I say, off the back foot. But his innings was 181. And I think if you asked Normie what was his greatest innings, I think you'd have to rate that one, especially after the early start that he had, which wasn't very complimentary to him.
Well, the state of the game, Australia just on 50 runs ahead, or just over that. Could it be won either way from there?
Well, I think we more or less thought that it would end up in a draw at that stage with 2 days to go, Norman. But I think the best part was that we went out there to play cricket, and we were determined we were playing to win. And I think that was the whole point right throughout the series, that basically, except later on in the series, but really, we went out there to win the test match, and I think both sides went out to win it. And I think that's what actually, when you culminated in what was a fantastic last day.
The second innings for the West Indies can be rated as a personal triumph for Alan Davidson. Now, we've picked out some highlights of this. We'll show them fairly quickly, and here they are. This is the West Indies batting. Sobers is the batsman.
The initiative with this ball from left-hander Alan Davidson. A fast-swinging Yorker, and Sobers is clean bowled. Sobers made 14 runs, and the West Indians have lost 3 for 114. Solomon is content to keep his wicket intact and leave the run-getting to his more experienced partner. And Worrell does just that. He's batting quite well now in that graceful fluent manner, which has always been a feature of his play. The vital partnership is brought to an end by Alan Davidson. The brilliant left-arm bowler takes his 4th wicket when Frank Worrell snicks a catch to ground. Worrell is out for 65, the same as his score in the first inning. A grand performance by the veteran West Indian captain. Worrell and Solomon added 83 runs, and the score is 5 for 210. Alan Davidson follows up his great effort with another wicket. Lashley clean bowled without scoring, and the West Indians faced a very real prospect of outright defeat with a lead of 158 runs with 4 wickets in hand. Hall clean bowled, and the West Indians are all out for 284. They have a lead of 232 runs, and Australia has just over 300 minutes batting time left to score the run.
So here's that scoreboard, and you see there a disappointing effort by the West Indies compared to the fireworks of the first innings. Worrell was the top scorer with 65, and Canhay also reached the half-century. Of the bowlers, Davidson was head and shoulders above the rest with his 6 for 87, and Simpson picked up a couple of cheap wickets. Alan Davidson, 11 wickets for the match. That must bring some great memories back, particularly that ball to Sobers.
Well, especially after the first innings, Norman, if you recall, the brilliant 132, and then to get in the second dig, you know, we had been working on possible ways we could get him out, and Gary always early in the innings was looking for the ball to the onside, and he was inclined to hit across the ball a little bit, and I just thought, well, okay, I'll give him a quick Yorker, hopefully it'll move a little bit away from him, which it did, and he played just slightly across the line. I must admit that I jumped in the air a bit. Gary took particular note of it, and of course got 168 a couple of tests later against us. But when you're bowling to somebody like Sobers, you know, you've really got to be really trying everything you can to get a great player out. And I suppose the 6 wickets, it was the first time I'd picked up, I think, over 10 wickets in the match, and especially in that innings, because it gave us a chance then of trying to win the game.
That's right, you thought you could win from there.
We thought we could win from there.
But what happened? Let's see what happened on the next morning. And there's a fellow called Wes Hall who had different ideas.
Neil Harvey snicks, and Sobers takes a brilliant catch. Sobers dislocated his finger taking the ball, and Alexander, a veterinary surgeon by profession, applies first aid. The bowler at the grandstand end is little Sonny Ramadan. Mackay beaten is clean bowled, and Australia, with 6 wickets down, is still 141 runs behind. Mackay scored 28 runs, and Australia has 92 on the board.
We showed you those shots quite briefly because we're going to concentrate on the end of this rather remarkable match. Now, there you were 6 for 92, Alan. You were batting yourself. Richie Benno came to join you. You still wanted 140 to win, and not much time left.
Well, actually, Norman, I can recall going in at 5 for 57, and all I could think I was, having bowled through the both innings, basically, and all of a sudden we're 5 for 57, and I'm in there. And I thought, what in the hell am I doing out here batting? I shouldn't be batting at all. To me, we wanted 230 odd to win. And I just thought, well, I had to go out and do the job. Kenny Mackay, my old roommate, was there, and he stayed around till 90. He got a very good ball from Ramadan. I can remember Richie and myself walking off at tee, wanting this 140, and we sort of sat around, and I suppose there was deathly silence. I can honestly say that I just sat there. I was like a stunned mullet. I think so was everyone on the team. We were a very silent dressing room. And the amazing part about it was when we walked back out onto the field, it was like a message that I think Richie and myself, we just turned to one another, and Richie said, let's give it a go. And I doubt if any other test series, or any test series, when you consider that we're 120 something behind with one session to go, that's a run a minute on the last day of a test match, the top of the wicket is gone, and you've only got 4 wickets left. Now, every other test match that I think or test series you could play in, and the first test match of a series, which is a vital one, and yet we went out to win that game, despite that fact that we only had 4 wickets to go in the last session. Every other side that I think I could think of would have played for a draw. But I think that was the epitome of what this test match was about. It was a great test match. It was a game that had everything, the Sabres innings, the O'Neill innings, the Wesley Hall fire that he showed. And a lot of people don't realise that Wesley Hall actually bowled in that test match with new boots, and he actually had blistered feet, and actually he actually at some stage actually bowled with no socks. Mm-hmm. And there were some great moments in that test match.
Well, Alan, you haven't spoken about yourself. Now, can we say that Alan Davidson went on to make cricket history by being the first person ever to score more than 100 runs and take more than 10 wickets in one match? Now, let's go on now to the great conclusion of this wonderful game.
Richie Benno survived an appeal for caught behind of Ramadan's first ball. The Australians have reached the end of their batting lineup, and the result of the match hinges on the performance of the 2 players at the wickets. Davidson and Benno rise to the occasion, and this is the start of a great partnership. Davidson and Benno put on a century partnership, and the game is building up to a dramatic climax as Hall bowls with the new ball at 20 minutes to 6. Davidson with an off drive, and Australia wants 23 runs to win. Ball to Benno. It's turn to leg. Another single, 22 to win. A whole bumper, a vigorous hook shot, an obvious 4, 18 runs required. "17 runs to win. It's a real grandstand finish, and Richie Benno is getting anxious with 15 minutes left. It's going to be a photo finish result with the whole crowd in a state of feverish excitement. Davidson attacks, and away they go for another run, and they require 16 to win. Count the runs as the batsmen score off every ball. And the match to win. A breathless hush as they bowl, a tremendous cheer as they score. 9 runs to get, 10 minutes to go. 2, perhaps 3 overs left. The fieldsmen racing to their positions. Richie Benno playing a great captain's hand in this, the greatest test match finish in the long history of the game. A push to leg, a suicidal run. They scamper home, 8 to win. In comes Hall, bowling to Davidson. He flashes his bat. It's almost a catch. Sobers the bowler. Benno plays the ball to mid-wicket. They start down the pitch, and Davidson is run out by a magnificent return from Solomon. Davidson run out for 80. What a grand cricketer he is. 40-odd runs in the first innings and 11 wickets in the match. 7 runs to outright victory with Sobers bowling to Grout. Just 6 more runs. The last ball of Sobers over, and Benno trying to keep the strike with only 5 minutes left for play. Now comes the amazing finish to the test match with Wesley Hall bowling the first ball of the last over. They're going to run for anything. They sprint home for a single, and it's 5 to win. Back now with Hall for the second ball. Benno snicks and he's out, caught by Alexander. The 8th Australian wicket has fallen, and either side can still win the match. Benno scored a splendid 52, and now it's left to Grout and Meckiff with Lindsay Klein to follow. The third ball of the over. Ian Meckiff, the batsman. He reaches forward and drives, but there's no run. Hall bowling the 4th ball. Meckiff starts to run. Hall picks up and throws, but he misses a certain run out. The 5th ball. 4 runs to win. Grout swings, the ball goes high in the air. Hall races across and he drops the ball. A bad fielding error, and Australia needs 3 runs to win. The 6th ball. Meckiff connects and the ball flies deep in the outfield. They complete a 2nd run. The scores are level. The 3rd run will win the match. Grout makes a great effort, but the bails go off and he's run out. The scores are tied. 1 wicket left. Hall bowling the 7th ball to Klein. Meckiff is run out, and the match has finished in a tie. First in Test history, and a fitting end to one of the greatest Test matches of all.
There's lots and lots of tension in there. The Slasher Mackay, when Richie Benno and Alan Davidson had that wonderful stand and pulled us closer and closer to the score we're looking for, Slasher had us sitting on our chairs, and we weren't to change our chairs because he was very superstitious and things were going well. And if we needed to go to the toilet, we had to be back by the time the next over started. So we did that, and Slasher believed that was a big thing in helping us getting closer and closer. I said to Colin McDonald about an over and a half before, I won't have to bat, that's great. Colin said, don't you believe it, there's a chance you might have to bat yet. And as it turned out, it was. When my turn came to bat, I looked for my gloves, couldn't find them, and I finally found out that I was sitting on them. And away I went. Walked out onto the ground, and I passed Frank Worrell. Frank said to me, you look a little pale, Lindsay. And I said, Frank, I feel a little pale. So I walked to the wicket and spoke to Ian Meckiff, and we agreed that we were going to run on that ball, not wait till the last one. I went and took my stance, took my block, and Wes Hall, I looked at Wes, and he was way in the distance. I'm certain he went back another 20 metres, and I think he pushed off from the fence, he was so far back. And I can remember thinking to myself, gee, I wish he'd hurry up and get here. And he bowled the ball, and it was right on the stumps, and I played it. I thought pretty well for number 11, out to square leg. Joe Solomon picked it up and knocked the wickets down. And as it turned out, it was a tied test. I was running for a win. And I found out later, Ian Meckiff was running for a tie. Some of the West Indies thought they'd won, some thought they'd lost, some thought they'd tied. So there was lots and lots of confusion out there.
Australia all out 232 in the fourth innings, and the partnership between Captain Benno and Davidson dominating the score. There were 3 run-outs and only 7 wickets fell to the bowlers. And Hall put up a superb effort with his figures of 5 for 63 for a total of 9 wickets for the match. This then was the final historic scoreboard. And for the final word on the fabulous tie, Alan McGilvray.
Both captains went out from the start, from the first test to the fifth, to win the game. They didn't want any drawn games. They were out to win. And that was, I wish that would happen today. But so often we see in our great opponent, England, they'll close up rather than go for a win. They've had many opportunities, particularly at the Oval a couple of years ago that I was there. No, those captains made the issue completely, and as such, they got support from the players who not only played it, but enjoyed it. This is the whole game, enjoying your cricket, and I would say that Benno and Worrell made a great contribution to cricket.
Well, last thing, there's a remarkable photo of the end of this game, and the significant point here is not the people who are in the photo, but the people who aren't. Notice there, no umpires are in shot.
That's right, and yet they did a great performance too. You see that 3 decisions, the last over, were given by umpires, weren't they? And they were unobtrusive, because I always said that Colleague is the best umpire I've ever been associated with. I believe he's a great umpire, so is Colin Hoy. But they made a great contribution to the game. You couldn't get better, a combination, 2 captains, good playing, and 2 umpires that knew what it was all about.
Well, it's certainly a match we cannot forget in the game of cricket. And let's watch again, just to close off, the last over, the last few balls of that last over. Commentary this time, the actual commentary from the ground, is quite exciting. The commentators are Clive Harburg and Johnny Moyes.
Moves in, bowls to Benno. Benno tries to hook him, and is out! Caught the edge and is caught behind by Alexander.
Gracious me.
8 wickets for 228. Well, what a test match. Moves in, bowls to Meckiff. Forward to it, drives it, ball across, gets a hand to it, takes the sting out of it, and the ball runs down to mid-off, fielded by Valentine. Ball now to Meckiff. Moves in on his leg stump. Tries to sweep it, and here's a stolen single, and he might be run out, and Hall misses out. 8 for 229. Pull to ground. Ground skies him. 3 of them, 4 of them getting under it. Can High catch it, and it's stopped! It's stopped! 4 of them converged on the ball. Ball tipped in off the mark. Goes to Meckiff. Meckiff pulls him high into the outfield. 4 runs. No, it won't get to the fence. They're going for the 3, though. Trout slides his bat behind the line. He's flying fast, and he's out. Run out! Run out! Run out! Ball will bow decline. And here's the single that wins the match for Australia. He's out! He's run out! Run out! He comes the down down. Well, so it's a tie.